Good evening, viewers, and welcome again to Discovering Truth. And I am Pastor Forbes from the Gateway Abiding Word Ministries, obviously in the Gambia. I want to start by saying, on behalf of my family and on behalf of all the gatekeepers in the Gateway and Abiding Word Ministries, we want to say thank you to everyone who supported us in our just concluded 29th anniversary as a church. So we have started our 30th year, the beginning of our fourth decade. Thank you so much for Destiny 2017. On behalf of our speakers, Pastor Nkechi Ene, Reverend James Enin, our worship leaders, Myro Ese, Namsi Okung, Josephine Ankoma, the church choir, and everybody, we say thank you so much. Thank you, obviously, to the police, to Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to the airport, the hotels, the travel agents, GRTS, the radio stations, and just everybody who comes on board to partner with us, financial institutions, private individuals, local and global, people who, for now, practice my faith, and even those who do not yet practice my faith. Everybody came on board with a sweet spirit, all contractors. We say thank you so much. The glory of the conference first all goes to God, but thanks goes to you all for making it all possible. And of course, to all those gatekeepers in Abiding Word who are sleeping and waking, like myself, dozing because of the hard work. Thank you all so much for all we have done by the grace of God. We want to also apologize. We had really wanted to go all the way to last Sunday, the 5th, but our guests had to go, and we were really getting tired, so we felt God's plan was to end it. So it ended being Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, instead of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Forgive us, but like they always say, the early bird catches the first worm. So always come early and don't wait for the end. But please accept our apologies. The Berauka, or the blessing, we believe has come to this land. I love my country. I love the land of my birth. And I believe that every nation and every person and every group of individuals, every family, everything that has the breath of God in it or in him can only come to maximal and optimum full expression and completion when it connects God's divine blessing and God's divine purpose. I am glad to note that at the very beginning of man's creation, Adam, or Adama and Hawa, as we know in other books, is God breathed life unto them. And it says in the Bible, and God blessed them, and God said to them. And the blessing was a blessing of fruitfulness, of multiplication. That means you become fruitful in multiples. And then filling the earth, it means taking territories and subduing everything that opposes you and exercising godly dominion over the earth. What a blessing. And I am also glad to know that if you count those blessings as 5 blessings, being fruitful as 1, multiplying as 2, filling the earth as 3, subduing it as 4, and exercising godly dominion as 5, you would immediately note that the first 3 cannot happen without you having a seed. You cannot have fruit without seeds. You cannot multiply without fruits that came from seeds. And you cannot fill a place without multiple fruits that came from seeds that expanded. And so it's important for each one of us to know, as must our country, that there is a seed that the Lord God has put in us. It's a unique seed that makes us stand out differently from others, so we can play our role globally amongst the community of civilized nations and add and bring added value to God, to our nations of the world. It's good enough for everybody to say the Gambian miracle. How did the Gambia do it to change a government of 22 years? But, in life, whenever you give praise to yourself, you start going on a slippery slope, because it's evident to you and to me in everything that we do. It's not just our brain power. It's not just our street smartness. It's not just the Gambian niceness. It's not just the friendliness. It is God who comes in a time when even you yourself, you know that nothing is going to work from your power. You've exhausted every skill, wisdom, intelligence. You've done everything you know how to do. And that's for good measure, because then God tells you to step aside so that he can come in and do what he does in a classy, divine way. So you have no choice but to give him all the glory and the honor and the praise. I believe that's what our nation saw, and I believe that's what we as Abiding Word Ministries saw as we transition in the Berauka blessing of God. This evening I want to start a new series, and I have entitled it The Return of a Glorious Country. The Return of a Glorious Country. And obviously, for all who have been following all the events in this country over the last 13 months, you will know that a lot happened, and we are still trying to make sense. A lot of things the new government is trying to come to terms and find its milieu and find its footing on so many things. But I want to state categorically clear that I believe under God that this country will come into the blessing of God. This country will fly high again in the blessing of God. There will be a return of the Gambia as a glorious country. Now, two things are important to note. If there's going to be return, it means that we were once somewhere, and in between the return and where we were, something happened that made us dip nationally. Now, enough has been said to cast blames and aspersions in so many places and in so many systems, and maybe rightfully so. But as we always say, you cannot clean milk when it spills on the floor by asking who spilled it. Who spilled it is not going to clean it up. And if it falls on carpet, the next thing you know, you're going to have a stain on carpets. On your carpet, there's going to be ants, and you're going to have a bigger problem. The ability of a person or of a nation to quickly recalibrate and galvanize themselves nationally and say, this has happened, let's put it behind us, deal with the legalities as they require for remuneration, for retributive justice and all that, but we got to move forward. And you never move forwards looking backwards all the time. You cannot successfully move from point A to point B by stopping at every point in between them and trying to answer every dog that's barking at you. So the first of the two key issues is that when you return, it means you were somewhere before, which was appreciative, which was better than where you are now. The second of the two things is that there is an ability somehow to return. It's been said that people who make money and lose the money can make the money again, because the ability to make the money still resides in them. They have to come to terms with maybe their lack of wisdom, their foolishness, maybe their pride, maybe the fact that they were not patient enough. And we all learn lessons in life, and we tell ourselves that what I did that got me here, I will be unsmart and foolish, really, to do the same things, because as we know, the same methods give us the same results. So it means the ability is within us. And this comes back to Berauka, the blessing. Because if you are familiar with the Bible, in the first book of the Bible, Genesis, in the first chapter, which is chapter 1, of course, and verse 11, there is a verse that goes something like this: let every herb and every plant bring forth fruit after its kind. Then it goes on to say, whose seed is within itself. Once the seed is within you, you are able to reproduce again. So even in terms of agriculture or even human fertility, maybe something happens and there is a miscarriage, you are able to reproduce. The seed is within you because that seed was put by God, the seed of greatness, the seed of wealth, the seed of happiness, of joy, of prosperity, of economic development, of greatness is within you. But you must release it under the guidance and the blessing of God. And every person, every institution, families, homes, nations, groups of nations that have dipped so bad, dip because of one main word. It's a 5-letter word. I'll spell it. It spells this Pride. And that word means pride. And in the Bible, in the book of Proverbs, the book that's almost in the middle, the book that I said every businessman should read and every person should read. It has 31 chapters. So if you take it from November 1, you probably finish December 1. If you take it December 1 and read a chapter a day, by the 31st, you've read the book of Proverbs. And so it's an easy route, but it's loaded with divine wisdom. Not street wisdom, but divine wisdom given to Solomon. And in chapter 16 of the book of Proverbs, and I believe it's verse 18, a statement is made, and it goes like this: pride precedes a destruction, or pride precedes destruction, and a haughty spirit goes before a fall. Sometimes it's said the other way around. Pride goes before a fall, and a haughty spirit before destruction. So wherever you see destruction and where you see a fall, if you look around and you start interviewing, you're going to find that pride was there, a haughty spirit was there. And if you go behind pride and a haughty spirit, you're going to find that there were warning signals flashing. You are taking more than you can. You are abrogating powers to yourself. Absolute power corrupts. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. You are beginning to think that you are God. You are beginning to feel invincible. Nobody can do what you do. You can command people, and you can tell the signals. And when that happens, pride takes over a people. It can take over a nation. It can take over an organization. It can take over an individual. And it ends into destruction. And it ends into a fall. There is a king also in the Bible, one of the many kings. He is spoken about in another book of the Bible, and that book is Second Chronicles, like how you chronicle information. There is First Chronicles and Second Chronicles. And Second Chronicles, I believe it's chapter 26, from verse 1 going down to 3, 4, 5, tells a story of a young king. And God so loved him because God rules over our lives. What I am, what you are, no matter how great we are and we are acknowledged with accolades in the world, if God stops your breath, you're finished, you're gone, that's it, it's all over. And people don't clap for a corpse. And so it says, as long as this king sought the face of God, as long as he asked God for wisdom, for grace, for understanding, to be able to govern the affairs of his kingdom. It's like what a president needs to do, what our president needs to do, what leaders need to do, what managing directors need to do, what pastors need to do, what headmistresses and principals need to do. We all need to do that because we have blind spots. We cannot know everything. You can gather your wise, trusted colleagues and put them in the board. They wouldn't know anything because people come on board with their penchants, their idiosyncrasies, their mood swings, and all kinds of things. And you cannot get the best of people all the time. But God, who has nothing to hide, no axe to grind, God is not temperamental, God doesn't throw tantrums, God is not stroppy. God, when you seek him and seek him in his way with your heart, he will give you wisdom. So that chapter in the Bible, in Second Chronicles chapter 26, it says, as long as this king sought after the face of God, God made him prosper. So his prosperity was a product of his asking God, should I invest in this? Should I buy this plot? Should I take this job? Should I study that course? Should I marry that man? Should I marry this woman? Should we buy this land? Should I invest in this? Should I do T-bills? Should I do that? Because you are asking the creator of the ends of the earth, who sees what you cannot see, who knows the thoughts of people even before they verbalize them. Because we've all lived to see people tell you that all is well when all is bad. We've lived to see people tell you, "Bul worry, nala dimbale," and they have no plans to help you. We've lived to see people carry books of religions and lift them high and swear by them. So they lift up these holy books, and people do that all the time. But they do not intend to do it. That's why I love the Bible, because it says the heart of man is wicked. It's desperately wicked. It's deceitful. You cannot know. But when you ask God, he can lead you and guide you. So it says about this king, as long as he kept the connection with God. And keeping that connection comes from an understanding that this chair I am sitting on, God placed me there in his mercy, in his goodness, for a short time to fulfill a purpose so that I go. But if I forget all that and I say it's my strength of power, then pride begins to come in, a haughty spirit begins to come in, and destruction and a fall knock on your door. So that scripture says in 2 Chronicles 26, as long as he sought the Lord made him prosper. But when his heart was lifted up in pride, he got destroyed. So when we talk about the return of a glorious country, we are saying that things have happened, but we must return. What is the process of the return? That is what we will explore maybe in the next 2 or 3 segments. But suffice to say, 3 crucial things. One, you can see that the initial life is one of sanity. The initial life is one of soundness. The initial life is one of humility. Doesn't it surprise you that when somebody comes to work in a new office, a company, an organization, they are nice. They say, yes, my yes, sir. They are punctual. They clean their desks. They meet their deadlines. Give them 6 months. Give them a year. Let them just go through the, I've forgotten what this thing is called, probation. And then sometimes you wonder. And 3 years later, if you show them their application letter and show them their behavior, it's all changed. Because we all have this ability of starting cool, starting nice, sound, humble, sane. We know all the problems before we sit on the chair. And sometimes when we sit on the chair, it's as if amnesia, memory block, and loss hits us. And that which we condemned, we begin to do. So the oppressed become the new oppressor. If our country is going to return to glory, we have to make sure that as we are starting what we have all called the new Gambia, there should be a sense of soundness, a sense of sanity, a sense of humility. In other words, let our expectations and our ideals and dreams for this new Gambia be sky high, but let our feet be on the ground. Let's still be humble. There's nothing like a humble person. Again, back to the Bible, it states categorically clear that God opposes. God opposes. God stands right before a proud person. But he gives grace to the humble. God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. The same Bible says, you humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, that I should humble myself under the mighty hand of God, that the coalition government, that the parastatals, public enterprises, each one of us, it's not a question of it's our turn. The last regime was pro a particular tribe. Now this regime is pro another tribe. We cannot live like that, because we definitely know that not one tribe voted the past government out of power, and definitely not one tribe voted this coalition government into power. So we must kick that thinking away and bury it and concrete it and think Gambia under God. And so if we keep that sense of humility and sanity, saneness, and soundness, we'll start returning. Because when you ask people and when you hear people's concerns, you'll hear how people were maltreated and people were just, it's as if their rights were taken away from them. When pride comes, everything goes bad. And the funny thing about pride is that it has a spillover effect almost in some kind of psychological trauma and psychological damage to people's lives. And so we have to return. The returning is under God. The example in my heart and what will be our foundational scripture is a king in the Bible called Nebuchadnezzar. A lot of us have heard about him. And I'll read a bit of his account and pull a couple of principles out from his account. And so Nebuchadnezzar became proud, and God said he was going to punish him. He almost ended up like an ox. When a human being begins to eat grass, then it's like something has gone terribly wrong. When a king or a leader or a president or a prime minister stoops and is brought low by God, then it means something has gone wrong. So listen to this account. It's in the book of Daniel in the Bible. Yes, there is a book called Daniel. after the name of one of the great prophets. In chapter 4 of Daniel, I'm going to read from verse 30 to 37, or actually 34 to 37. So I'll read 4 verses. It says, "At the end of the time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my understanding returned to me." Remember, we are talking about the return of a glorious country. He said at the end of whatever happened to him, which was his bad time, that he lifted his eyes to heaven, and my understanding returned to me. And I blessed and praised the Most High God, and praised and honored him who lives forever, because his dominion is an everlasting one, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. Only God is eternal, everlasting, and cannot be voted out or overthrown. The rest of us, we come and we go. And leadership must always remember that. Question is, what legacy we leave? Verse 35, the king continues to say that all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, but God does according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth. And what he does, no one can restrain his hand or say to him, "What have you done? And why have you done what you've done?" In another part in the Bible, it says God does everything according to the counsel of his will and his purpose, because God knows everything. Now verse 36, especially verse 36. "At that same time, my reason returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my honor and splendor returned to me. My counselors and nobles resorted or returned to me, and I was restored to my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added to me. Therefore now, I, King Nebuchadnezzar, I praise and extol the honor of the King of heaven, all of whose works are truth, and his ways justice. And those who walk in pride, he is able to put down." So let's reestablish again that if the Gambia is going to return to its glorious greatness, we must keep pride away. And that's why we talk about servant leadership. Yes, people are voted in, people are nominated, and things happen. Maybe somebody won something by 2/3 majority, or a board gave somebody a job. But the job is not for you to oppress. You are a servant leader. Servant leader. Serve leader. Serve leader. Because pride, God will bring down. But when the process of the restoration is happening, and I will mention this in the next 2 minutes that I have, and we'll start fleshing this out by the grace of God next week and the weeks to come. There are about 5 things this king said. The first was that he lifted his eyes up to the God of heaven. Gambia, I counsel. Gambia, I advise. Gambia, I pray. The land of my birth, this country that I love with every fiber in my being. If this country is going to turn upwards, it's not political parties, it is not Yai Compings, Gor Compings, it is not youth groups, it is not Gambians have decided, it is not donor agencies, it's not multilaterals, bilaterals, it's not how smart we are and how we can outsmart people. It's not the number of global organizations we belong to and their prescribed patterns of getting us out of economic quagmire. We must lift our eyes up to God. There is a song that says, the world can give you mercy drops, but you must come into the showers of God. And so this king found out that pride cannot help me. Pride brings me down, and I've learned my lesson to be sane, to be sound, and to be humble. So I lift my eyes up to God, who sees everything, who created the ends of the earth, for him to help me. And when he did that, he said 5 things happened. 1, his understanding came back. 2, his reasoning faculties came back. 3, his honor and his splendor came back. 4, his counselors and his nobles, not the people who lied to him. The true people came back to him. And 5, excellent majesty was restored to him. And 6, the kingdom and its glory came back to him. I believe that's the process our nation has to go through. We need to come back into proper reasoning, because the things that happen over 2 decades make no sense. But we must make sure that they don't happen again. Under God, I can see a Fuller, a Jola, an Aku, a Karaninka, a Mandika, a Wolof as me as a Gambian. Reason and understanding will come. And then counselors, not liars, not sycophantic people, not people who will call blue, gray, and pink red. Nobles will come from within the country and from the diaspora. And together God will add value and bring excellent splendor and majesty, and the glory of the Gambia will rise up. When that happens, I counsel again, let not one person say, Markodef. So in party more Kodef. No, because we'll go back to where we came from. The return of a glorious country will happen under God. But while it is happening, please remember, pride will take us down. Let humility exalt us up. Until I come your way next week, by the grace and mercy of God, have a good evening. God bless us all. And Dewinati. Good night.